Michael O'Hanlon is a Director of Research at the Brookings Institution and Director of the Strobe Talbot Centre on Security, Strategy and Technology. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Michael, welcome. Thanks for being with us. Firstly, Trump has teased this speech as a big one. Certainly those, I think, a couple of thousand people now who've lost their jobs in the federal cuts will be looking for some sort of explanation. What do you think is coming?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. You know, there's been so much happening since he became president, and lots of it doesn't seem really to comport with what he promised on the campaign trail, especially, as you say, these cuts to the government, this whole embrace of Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who seems to have developed a real contempt for government regulation and therefore government employees in his private life. And now Trump's empowered him to go after the government in ways that he really did not campaign on. And also, meanwhile, the Congress is proposing very deep cuts to certain kinds of federal programs in order to justify additional tax cuts. And this budget work has not really played out yet in a way that most Americans have taken stock of. And so I think Mr. Trump may try to explain that, but I'm not sure he's going to be met with very good reception. I actually think he's off to a bad start. I say that as a person who studies Ukraine, and I think on Ukraine, he's doing better than I might have guessed, despite the last 2 weeks of brouhaha with President Zelensky. But in terms of what he's doing to the country and our government, the ability of Americans to have predictable trade with their neighbors and therefore keep down inflation, the ability to have the government process claims for disability or Social Security or health care, I think he's making a mess of things. And I'm very curious as to see how he'll try to explain all this tonight.
I want to take you back to Ukraine, Michael, as we're seeing reports that Trump's keen to announce his minerals deal if it is signed today during his address to Congress. What did you make of the move to pause military aid?
Well, I think it's classic Trump. You know, he likes, and we've seen it now with the tariffs with half the rest of the world, he likes to deploy whatever tools he has at his beck and call quickly to make an effect, to make a psychological effect, and to make a bargaining move as much as to cause a direct outcome from that particular policy. And so the idea that he would pause these weapons deliveries, I think, is designed to create fast movement in the conversation. And, you know, I don't think it signifies any seriousness on President Trump's part to literally cut Ukraine off entirely and absolutely and for good. But he wants to try to create some kind of a change in perspective in Kyiv. My own view is that he really didn't need to do this in order to achieve that effect. And last week's meeting in the Oval Office certainly went a long way towards getting people's attention without any suspension of weapons deliveries. But Trump likes to pile it on. And again, he likes to, if anything, overdo it for the sake of then being able to pull back later and do the art of the deal, as his famous book described. So I'm hopeful this is not going to last and not really going to hurt Ukraine, but we'll have to see.
And back at home in the States, Democrats and many legal experts are alarmed by what they see as an overreach of power by Trump. Do you think those fears are justified, and where do you think the states could be heading?
Yeah, I absolutely think those fears are justified because under our Constitution, only the Congress has the power to appropriate funds. President can sign an appropriation bill or not, but once the bill becomes law, the money is supposed to be spent. And there's a long history of legislative executive disputes on this issue and a long history of legislation. The so-called Budget and Impoundment Act, I think of 1974, basically made it illegal for presidents to do what Trump's doing, to withhold spending once that money has been appropriated by Congress and the bill's been signed into law. So I think the Trump administration is consciously pushing the limits of legal authorities, knowing full well they're going to lose some cases in court, but content to create a big disruptive effect in the meantime.
And we touched on it a bit before, but the number of federal workers having their roles terminated keeps climbing, and those moves have been billed by Trump and Musk as cutting wasteful spending. But what is the implication of some of those terminations? I saw particularly the likes of, example, the NOAA, those climate scientists and those people saying that people's lives could be lost in extreme weather events if these kinds of roles are cut.
Absolutely. And people's lives are already being lost because of the suspension of foreign aid and the demolition of the Agency for International Development. I think these cuts are callous. Usually when I talk about President Trump's foreign policy in regard to issues that I study full time, like Ukraine and Taiwan, I see more nuance and I see positive signs to build upon. But what they're doing to the government, I see no justification for whatsoever. And one more thing that troubles me is they're going after, in many cases, the younger people, the newer hires, because those people are easier to fire and get away with the firing, which means that we're essentially eating our own future seed corn by making government service less attractive to the very young, talented people that we should want to bring in. So I think it's all bad on that front.
Michael O'Hanlon, Director of Research at the Brookings Institution and Director of the Strobe Talbot Centre on Security, Strategy and Technology. Thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you kindly.